Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Venture Outfitter Weekly. We are live from Austin, Texas. I am in the Rogue Airstream trailer. We'll be getting back to my normal broadcast studio sometime soon, but people always ask, what is that? This is an Airstream Basecamp 20X that I sometimes take on the road and actually get to talk to you from all sorts of random different places around the world. I'm actually right now, it's just in Austin, Texas, but excited to be here with you guys today. Wanted to go ahead and share a little bit about today's topic and stuff like that. And we're going to be, Jello is out sick. For those of you that know that Jello is out sick. And so send him good vibes and stuff like that. He normally does our video production. And so Emma and I are kind of like trying to figure out, okay, how do we actually make sure all the buttons go the right way? So Jello, tell you what, let's go ahead and put whoever else on mute. If you don't mind, we'll go ahead and mute everybody. But if you come in a little bit later today and you'd like to say something, what we'll do is raise your digital hand. We'll go from there. Okay, so hopping right into the program. Today's program is about what they really want, and it's not your product. We're going to hear from one of our Venture Forth grads from way, way, way back. I don't know how many years. We were talking beforehand about the connection and all that sort of stuff. I think it's been at least a decade, but we'll find out more from Royce about that. But welcome to the Venture Outfitter. The whole idea about this program is this is one of the first steps into gaining market access around the world. We've had up to 15 different countries represented, where part of our work here as a community is to support each other in gaining market access, working in opening up the world and connecting the world connecting around the world. I'm tired-tongued today because I haven't had enough coffee yet. Today's sponsor is Chihuahua Global. Chihuahua Global is the organization responsible for opening up the state of Chihuahua to other places in the world. Part of the project that Tech Ranch has with Chihuahua Global is for helping the startup scale-ups, PMAs, which stands for small to medium-sized enterprises, and some of the large organizations connect in. And we've had entrepreneurs from Hungary and from Japan that have now connected through to Chihuahua. And a lot of you are focused on US market entry, and you might say, why am I talking to you about Chihuahua? Why am I talking to you about Mexico? For those of you all that don't know it, because of the trade agreement, which is called the USMCA, that stands for United States, Mexico, Canada. It's also sometimes referred to as NAFTA 2. Mexico is exploding in opportunity. A lot of supply chains are moving to Mexico. And Mexico is doing its best to keep up. And so part of the project that we're doing with Chihuahua is assisting in opening up those connections. There are 5 main states in the states of Mexico that we've done a lot of work with. And Chihuahua is a really interesting place. Ford's most productive plant in the world is actually in Chihuahua. There's a lot of different things. There's a good chance, if you're in the United States, there's more than a 50% chance that the airbags on the airplane that you just rode in over the last few weeks were built in Chihuahua. There's a lot of really advanced, interesting technology there that we'll be talking about more. So thank you, Chihuahua, for supporting, or Chihuahua Global for supporting this program. And we'll definitely be having more people from Chihuahua, like we had the Secretary of Economy of the state talk about her state much more. We'll have more connections there, because for a lot of entrepreneurs that don't know it, as an example, my first customer for my first startup 30 years ago was a bank in Mexico. A lot of times your early adopting customer might not be in the building next door to where you're sitting right now. You could be on the other part of the world. Okay, so we're kicking off Venture Bridges. And in fact, we might even hear from one of our Austrian entrepreneurs a little bit later today. I might put him on the spot based on how much space we have, but we're kicking off Venture Bridges with Austria. With Japan, we actually have our 2nd year going. And then I've already mentioned all the activities that are happening in Chihuahua. So these are taking off. We have several others that are in the queue. And the whole idea is, by creating this lattice of Venture Bridges, we give these early stage technology entrepreneurs that don't typically have the support of anything else access to these markets. 30 years ago, when I started my first company and I had got access to that bank in Mexico to roll out this really advanced piece of technology, it's just by chance that I got that opportunity. Part of what we're doing is we're actually structuring this so that there's more opportunities for you to gain access to these markets, whether they're, Texas, which is the predominance of where we focus, or one of these other places. So real excited to be launching these ventures. We'll be hearing from entrepreneurs from each one of these countries in the coming weeks. And I will be returning to Chile July 31st and to August 6th. You might ask, why Chile? What's this return? 20 years ago, when I started this part of my career, the first 1,000 entrepreneurs to go through one of our programs were in the country of Chile. And the work that I did subsequently became, or in some circles, I've been seen as the personal proto-entrepreneur that became a program that became Startup Chile. That was 7 years later, not related to why I was there, but they used my story to kind of tell that. And part of the reason I mention this is Chile is another interesting place to plug into in the world because of the work that's happening there. We'll tell you more about that. And in fact, the Venture Outfitter Weekly for that Thursday, I'll be doing live from Santiago. Next week, we're going to have Jeffrey Durenberger to talk about how to use generative AI to help your business grow. And on July 20th, Joe Milan, who's worked in a lot of different family offices in his angel investment background, is going to be talking about strengthening your fundraising possibilities. Joe has this process where he's saying, hey, if you report into your investors on a weekly basis, part of what they'll do, or actually on a monthly basis, he has a process for reporting in. He collects data from his company, collects data from you on a weekly basis, but he publishes this to your investors. The power of this is it's been shown through research that says that the relationships with investors it makes sense, right? If you're communicating with your investors, you're getting them more involved in your business. And, anytime you can get the stakeholders involved, this is a really great thing. I think both these programs are going to be really interesting. I'm interested in seeing how Jeffrey talks more about how we can use AI. And then Joe, by far, is a world-renowned expert in these type of interactions. He's also going to share some of the angel investment laws that have changed in recent years about why a lot of investors are now that did a lot of charitable giving are moving more of their money into investment vehicles because there's now tax advantages that there weren't before. So both those programs promise to be really interesting. If you're involved at all in the homeless, or if you have concern for the homeless, on July 11th, the City of Austin's Homeless Strategy Division and Innovation Office, along with friends of ours at Blue Sky Partners, are going to be talking about how to help Austin's unhoused or homeless neighbors. There are many different parts of the United States, especially Austin and San Francisco, that are having difficulties with homelessness. And I personally want to see something happen about that. I think in the most powerful country in the world, we should be able to figure this out. And I don't think it's about just throwing money at the answer. It's about getting more innovative. And so we'll be supporting this process. If you want more details, this will be posted on our Tech Ranch events calendar, or you can go to the QR code that's there on your screen. I noticed earlier today that we had not published this onto the events calendar, so that will be rectified before close of business today. So techranch.com/events, and you can find out more. So there's a special program that I want to make sure to mention, and this is not necessarily something we publish a lot, but I'm calling this the Tech Ranch Global Innovation Broker Opportunity. When you get entrepreneurs from around the world surfacing needs and surfacing solutions, some interesting things are occurring. Around 2 to 3 times per month, we're finding opportunities that a lot of times this is just in helping entrepreneurs that have compelling technology. We have a small team that's separate from the team that brings you classes and programs and stuff like that. It's a separate team that's helping drive these global innovation opportunities. As an example, we have a high net worth Mexican investor with a public company based out of the US that's doing investment in Argentina. for product that's going to go to Europe. And you might say, how did that all come together? Well, it came together through the network in recognizing that the Mexican investor had something that was desired by the Argentinians. And it's quite interesting about how these are merging. I think this is a really different way of thinking about how we can help entrepreneurs drive activity. We recognize that the core body of entrepreneurs that we're working with, that we can do this type of work. And it seems like on the clip of around 2 to 4 per month, so we'll say 2 to 3, or certainly 2 innovation deals per month are happening, where we're actually able to pull this together. And this looks more like what some of you might have heard of is called FDI, foreign direct investment. The power of this is that part of what I want to start saying to our ecosystem partners, our governments and stuff like that, as well as to entrepreneurs, is if you recognize a specific need or a specific problem set, a lot of times the network is getting to go around that. We have a set of professionals that can help on this type of activity. If you're interested in learning more, just let us know. Reach out to us. The best way to do so will be on the community notes inside of the community site later today. If you don't know what that is, then just reach out to us however you can. But the best way is to have this conversation in the community site. And to speak a little bit deeper about this, Omar Zaki, who's one of our venture partners, he's our man in Egypt. Actually, he's Egyptian American. He lives in Austin. He spends a lot of time in Egypt just because of his family background. He's one of the guys who's focusing on these type of investment deals. He has a really interesting investment that's working on Series B funding for a technology that's going through FDA approval that can improve the sight for guys like me that are wearing these silly glasses, aging that's happening. That I can't tell you the details of the deal, because it's my understanding that if I do that publicly, like since we're publishing publicly, that's outside of the rules. So this is not a call for funding for that specific company. But one of the things that's interesting is if you have an investable deal, it's usually best to get on our radar through our programs. But one of the things that happens is Omar is leading this part of the charge of TechCrunch. His background is much more suited around investment. Mine happens to be more suited around innovation, as an example. And so part of the thing we do is specific opportunities. He works on a handful of deals at a time, not many, but so this is not just an open call. We'll have him come back in later August to talk about this practice and some of the results that he's created and what's happening there. And you heard me last week talk about this. I've talked about this a number of times. I want to make sure that that the general public, especially if you're here for the first time, here's about our mental health initiative. There's many different initiatives, like we have an electromobility initiative that's being driven out of what's happening in the state of Chihuahua, as transportation's moving over from gas vehicles to electric vehicles. There's a bunch of different initiatives. And part of what we do is we partner up with different organizations to do this. The mental health initiative, we're looking for more ventures to get involved in this. And I'm on the board of a group called the Digital Mental Health Association in Europe, as well as I'm the leader of the Mental Health Special Interest Group as part of the Texas Global Health Security Initiative. What are those all about? The whole idea is that it's really clear that we're at this, coming out of COVID, that there's still a mental health crisis that's going on. And we want to support these mental health companies. If you're not involved in the community, make sure you go to the community site. And there is a channel for these companies, community.techranch.com and mental health. There's also a personal, this is, sometimes people get confused. There is also a channel for personal development on the community site. You can get involved in both. The personal development is like for your own personal mental health. This mental health channel is for mental health technology companies of all sorts. We've got everything from digital, digital tools that check in on you to make sure you're doing okay, to have been, especially since psychedelic ventures are now, like the government of Australia just legalized across the country the usage of psychedelics to help deal with mental health, because the data has come out that there's a really great way of serving PTSD survivors, and some interesting stuff happening there. If you want to learn more about that, or if you have a venture, or if you're just curious about this area, the best way is to get involved in that site. And if you're saying, hey, Kevin, that's great, but I'm not in the TechRanch community yet. The first step in the TechRanch community is available for free. Go to techranch.com/connect, and you can sign up for the community for free. And we're looking for mentors on that same site, techranch.com/connect. There's a place to apply to be one of our mentors. We're not trying to build just a long list of mentors. Part of what we're wanting to do is want to cultivate a real mentor practice. How can we support entrepreneurs in this process? And since I've studied Japanese martial arts for almost 30 years now, kind of the idea is there's this senpai-kohai relationship, and there's a certain set of responsibilities. I really mean to make a distinction between this and the mentor process that you'll see at a lot of different places, where you just have a long list of people that you throw up against a long list of entrepreneurs. We're not wanting to do that. And so please don't sign up if that's kind of what your expectation is, because part of what we're going to ask you to do as a mentor, you have to have scar tissue. You have to be willing to talk about your scar tissue. What I mean by that is, I really prefer the mentors that are willing to share their successes and their failures, not just their successes. I want to really get away from this idea of what I call Silicon Valley porn. Silicon Valley porn is this idea that, it's like Mark Zuckerberg, he never had anything go bad. That's not true. That's not true. So, if you're interested, our mentor program does require some responsibilities on doing some online training and stuff like that, and in a conversation with at least one of our venture partners, just to make sure that you're plugged in and oriented that way. That being said, I promise you're going to get access to some of the coolest impact innovation entrepreneurs committed to changing the world for the better ever. And so part of what I want to do is definitely have that call out and say, thank you for doing that. Okay, so it usually takes me around 15 to 20 minutes to get through all my slides, but perhaps you didn't come here to hear me today. Thank you for letting me talk about the community. Please get involved in the community. We'll have another call out to the community later today at the end of the program. Take advantage of it. But today's program is from Dr. Royce Johnson. Royce is actually one of our long-term, like I mentioned at the beginning of the program. He was in our Venture Forth program years and years ago. It's been more than a decade. And so I'll just, for those of y'all that can't see the slide, we got a lot of words on the slide, but part of what I'll do is tell you a little bit about him for those of y'all that are listening to this through a podcast. Royce is a healthcare innovator for 4 decades, shifted his focus to using analytical anthropology methods to understand customer needs and address the failure of many innovations that overlooked these complex motivations. Like, there's deeper insight that you can gain from just, a lot of times the engineer will put together the product and throw it out there and expect that the dogs, as we say, will eat the dog food. And that doesn't necessarily happen. So with expertise in biomedical engineering, technology management, and strategic innovation, Dr. Johnson holds multiple patents in areas such as wound therapy, tissue engineering, monitoring, and therapeutic hypothermia. He has commercialized nanotechnology in healthcare markets and assisted clients from pharmaceuticals to personal finance. So as we're catching him, and what he's going to talk to us about, by the way, is what they really want, and it's not your product. But as we're catching him, he's actually been taking a little bit of time off. And I was kind of jealous. We were getting to talk to him about it a little bit beforehand, about spending some time in Guatemala and stuff like that. But he's got a lot of insight. In fact, when we originally had him on in Venture Forth all these years ago, he was working on this nanoparticle nose that, not a human nose, but a piece of technology that could sniff out whether or not a orange tree in Florida had been infected with fungus, or it might even be able to figure out what's happening. Like, it's able to sniff out, like it's sitting in your bathroom, and as you're just doing your normal process, going through and stuff like that. And, it happens to just notice that maybe you've got something going on in your body that needs to happen. I haven't gotten to touch space with him in a long time, but I want to go ahead and bring him on. Royce, let's see. We'll go ahead and bring you into the screen, and I'll let you take over and tell us all about it. First off, welcome back to the Tech Ranch, and we're real excited that you're actually here. I'm excited to get to be able to reconnect with you again. What's been happening in your world, and just tell us real quick a little bit about yourself, and then hop straight into your slides.
Most recently, I guess I'm excited to be back into the hive of Austin after 10 years of full-time liveaboard cruising, 30,000 miles, and lost track of the number of countries and islands and towns we've been in, and all the wonderful people we've met. It teaches you pretty much how little you actually need to be living on a boat. And so now we've moved back, and we're living in a 400 square foot house we designed that's full of storage, and it's very boat-like in as a space. But we're really happy to be back, and our grandkids are 4 blocks down the street, so a lot
That's
of motivations
beautiful.
to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you back in the community, because I know you've gotten to do some really advanced stuff, and then this exploration as you've been traveling has been interesting. Let me do this. I know you have a presentation you're going to take us through and stuff like that, and I'll be monitoring the threads. We have a studio audience, as well as people who are watching on LinkedIn and on Facebook. But thank you for joining us. You don't remember which cohort? I was asking you earlier. You don't remember which cohort it was, like what the number was. We've had 50 cohorts. For those of y'all that don't know about Tech Ranch, we've had 50 cohorts of a program called Venture Forth. We'll bring it back eventually. We put it on hold going into COVID, because it was just like, it's hard to put together cohorts in person during that time. But yeah, Royce, do you remember what Venture Forth cohort it was?
My brain is filling in 10th or 12th, something like that.
I think it was pretty early on. Yeah,
it was pretty early, and you were still
evolving
the process. And I was there just largely to get involved in the community and learn tools and communicate some of the things I had learned, which have now really crystallized and turned into a moderately active consulting practice.
Good. Well, welcome back. Let me get out of the way and just have you hop right in and take charge.
Okay. Let me put these up here. What I want to do today, hopefully, is get y'all into a viewpoint that you're not going to be able to unsee. And this thing about how they don't want your product, I heard long ago that there was no such thing as products, only services. And then Clayton Christensen came along and started talking about what is the job of your product, what is the job of your milkshake, that kind of thing. But it always bothered me. I'm a bioengineer by training. I've been working the technology for 20 years and realizing that, actually the technology was the easy part. Figuring out what they want is really the hard part. And that started me down quite a voyage into the world of what I call applied or analytical anthropology. And at the time, we were deeply immersed in stage gate processes. I'd call it prolonged overexposure to stage gate processes, which have a real problem that I call the gate zero problem. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Then I'm going to talk about how you get back up out of that mindset into what they actually want. And then I'm going to talk about, once you understand what they want, how do you put it to work? So stage gate methods, everybody's probably familiar with it. You do some work, like concept work, and you put it through a group to say, yep, we understand enough about the product concept, we'll put it into design. Well, it became really apparent to me that there were all kinds of launch failures. There were lots of projects stopped mid-development when marketing discovered that, the customers say they don't want it, don't like it, won't buy it, yada, yada. design, people involved in design were all confused about what really needed to be built. And where did the concept come from anyway? Was it an executive in sort of a injector where some guy had an idea up in the C-suite and says, you guys need to build this? Where do you get started? And getting started in the right way was absolutely key to success. Absolutely key to success. Does anybody remember the Pontiac Aztec? I mercifully stopped building the poor thing fairly quickly. I think they only built it for a year or two. And then there's always the camel that's referred to as a horse designed by committee. The problem with most product development is that it's driven from the wrong motivations. It's driven from the corporate perspective, what I call the inside out perspective. It's really clear that it can happen, that you really can develop things that are absolute market disruptors. You recognize many of these things. In fact, I know stories about Steve Jobs and Zuckerberg that illustrate that they're doing essentially what I'm going to be talking about. They clearly have this viewpoint that I want you all to get away from this talk with. But all of these amazing successes, none of them were asked for by customers. Nobody was asking for a smaller car. And to this day, you still can't. It's really hard to find a small car that's a quality, good performing car. And it starts with the person. It's really complicated. And it's not just about what you think is their product. Sure, the college student is there, says they're wanting a degree. They're there to get their degree. But what do they really want? They're thinking about opportunities and careers and having a life with a home and friends and things to do. It's not their life. The customer's life is about their life. It's not about what you think you're going to be selling them. That's really the essence of this viewpoint. It's just not about what you think you're going to try to sell them. The inside out is playing the game. And the reason that I get along with Kevin so well is because everybody involved with Kevin is about trying to change the game. And so am I. I have always relished that aha moment when you finally realize that what you're talking about is something that they really value, that engages deeply with their daily lives and helps them make a complex situation easier. So the left side looks like focus groups. The right side looks like anthropology. But anthropology is sloppy. How do you do anthropology in a way that doesn't just have one guy sitting around talking to customers? I'm getting to know my customer. Where does the data come from in such a way that you can take it to other people in your organization and they see the light too? So a lot of what I'm talking about involves data, anthropological data. I call them data atoms. The raw material, you can do immersion research. You can sit on a stool in the corner of an ICU. You can watch moms make breakfast in their kitchens. You can do lots of immersive stuff. There's consulting projects. There's primary research in markets. There's all kinds of raw data out of there. But what you're trying to extract from that data, I call points of pain and points of delight. Most of this, actually, I learned from my mentor, a guy named Eric Hilkenstaller, who runs a very successful innovation and branding operation in New York called Vivaldi Partners. But the data you're after are points of pain, points of delight, interpretations of what they said into what they actually mean. And for example, last project I did, I think we collected 1,400 points of pain and delight from about 8 customers. This isn't a map. You don't need to survey 1,000 customers, right? It's pretty clear by the time you've talked to a dozen or so, what's generally going on in their world. You merge those down into what are obviously some detailed goal statements. And from there, you cluster them. And from the clusters, you make clusters of clusters. This is all old Six Sigma stuff, but you got to start with the right material and you got to go in the right direction. What you're trying to build is a map of what they want. Here's a map of what the wounded patient wants. One of the things that's remarkable about it is it has nothing to do with product. Nothing. Maybe the closest you get is up here in the upper left green quadrant, to have good care. Nothing is about product or service, for that matter. Yeah, maybe service. Maybe service. Good care is a service. I mean, so this is the pyramid, the top of a pyramid of data. And you can show this to executives and they'll say, well, you can show them. Here's the quotes. Here's what they meant. Built all the way up. This is the answer. That is the global demand space of a customer. Sure, your product, you say, well, okay, you want to have health. Let's work on a product that will help their health. Sure, but you better not interfere with their hope for the future or feeling abnormal. Do you know why most patients don't take their meds? Because it reminds them of how abnormal their lives are. It's not about a better pill minder or a machine that reminds you to take your pills. Doesn't matter what you build that way as a product, if you're interfering with their need to be normal, they're not going to do it. Right? One of the things you come out of with this process also is a worldview. The purple blobs are themes of delight. For example, on the top, I like to be able to do it myself. I bet a lot of people in the audience recognize that like. A theme of pain. Pain is damage to my loved ones. Their lives are being damaged by my situation, right? So this is a very nice, structured, demand-powered view of the customer. So what do you do with those things? There's lots of things you can do. For example, you can apply it to your project portfolio. I know with startups that you don't want to have more than one project. You really need to stay focused. But a lot of other more successful concerns have more than one thing going at a time. You can apply this to a project. You can apply it to a portfolio of projects. You can apply it to projects that don't exist, which is what got me really excited about it in the first place. There's a really powerful way to generate whole new opportunities no one has ever even conceived of. If you're going to do this kind of thing and you want to look at your project portfolio, I've got 3 sample projects here across the top. If anybody knows Six Sigma techniques, this looks an awful lot like a Six Sigma technique because it basically is. And on the left, the vertical list are those meta goals from that patient slide. Now, this is just the perspective of the patient. Essentially, it's the interpreted voice of the patient. It doesn't involve voice of the executive. It doesn't involve voice of the doctor. It doesn't involve voice of the insurance guy. It's just measuring what you're doing versus the patient's perspective. And if you look at that, you can see pretty quickly that widget you're trying to build is pretty much a meh as far as the patient's concerned. The EMR starts generating some, okay, there might be some things there that really get my interest, that you're working on an EMR. But the thing that turns out to be maybe the most powerful thing you could do is train the patients or their providers in how to use what they've already got. I actually did a project like this. One of the first Six Sigma-like projects I ever did ended up with exactly this result. And it wasn't working from the same raw material that I had on the left. So this is a way you can measure your entire project portfolio against what the customer really, really wants, what makes them happy. And on the basis of this one, actually, in that first program I did, They dumped the product development project that I was on. And in fact, I told them to dump it. I said, look, this is not going where you need to go. This is really expensive. Most offering developments are expensive and risky, whether it's a product or a service. There's a lot of other ways to innovate and deliver value to the market other than generating a product or service. I talked about how to find new opportunities. Turns out if you make another matrix, this one with those meta goals across the bottom and the themes of pain along one side, if you understand where they are experiencing frustration and you understand what they seek in their lives, you can start to put those together in a kind of like the end result looks a lot like a subway map, where the different points all ping off each other and form patterns. You start to see patterns. This is from a project that was done helping an insurance company figure out how to innovatively offer new opportunities to small business owners. Kevin might, actually anybody involved in running a small business is going to recognize that these are the issues that you still face trying to find insurance for your people. And the opportunities, like, what about a product that offers straight talk, none of this legal glop? What about partnering to get my people healthy? What about a trusted advisor that I and my people can turn to? These are all platforms of opportunity, which you can then take into a how might we exercise and start generating actual idea seedlings from and grow those individual seedlings. This is how you map out your opportunity. And it starts with data-driven maps of what the customers want and how they see the world. Here's some real life examples of some of those platforms. If you've ever been in an OR, that top row, GE Healthcare, a long time ago was doing this project with us. An anesthesia workstation is a nightmare. We call it malignant spaghetti in the clinical world, of cables and wires and screens and boxes and buttons. It was just a mess. And what anesthesiologists, my clinical training's in anesthesia, what anesthesiologists really needed was a station, a place, a tool, a workspace, a cockpit from which they could work, not some cobbled together stack of junk. So that's what GE Healthcare said about building. And the others from the consumer world are equally evident. Frito-Lay in the salty snacks world. Remember how they got started with the impulse buy display right next to the front door? You say, hey, let me grab a bag of Fritos on my way out the door. They evolved that into much more of an experience-driven platform of opportunities for them, and that has powered Frito-Lay for a long time. This is an old project. That's probably a 20-year-old project. Other real world results from this kind of thing. Go-Gurt is a story of this kind of work, of understanding what consumers actually seek, not what they ask for. So that's the viewpoint. They don't want your product, they want what they want. They seek what they seek, and it's complicated, and it looks a lot like anthropology. The Texas grocery chain, H-E-B, little known fact, they've got an entire department of applied anthropologists down there in San Antonio on the river. And they spend their time studying communities. And they use that knowledge to engineer not just product selection, but merchandising and strategies and community involvement and all kinds of things. Anthropology is really important. So that's what I got, Kevin.
Oh, thank you, Royce. This is really interesting. But let's do this. bring you and me onto the screen, and if you could release your slides, what we'll do is I'd like to ask you a couple of questions real quick. And I know we have a lot of different people. I'm gotten several different messages during the course of today. By the way, I'll say this before. I know I got a lot of different private chats that said, hey, can I read a little bit more about this? Can I watch the video later and all that sort of stuff? Because some of the people have had to step out. For those of y'all that don't know, we publish this both as a podcast as well as onto YouTube. So totally understand the people who sent me notes saying, hey, I got to hop off early. Part of the reason that we actually do this in a live Zoom is so that we can actually take questions. And we're also going to have some shout outs in just a little bit from several different people there. So let me just do that housekeeping before we ask the question. But Royce, now back to you. The thing that actually, let's see, Emma, if you can spotlight him and spotlight me. So it's just the two of us. We're kind of getting used to, since we don't have Jello in doing video production right now, about that. So Royce, question for you is, a lot of the people that are represented in the studio audience, especially, are from different countries. And so what would you offer to the lens of individuals that are working across different countries? Like, how is it that we actually do that as well? Like, how do we actually look, how do we look between the two of us, or between the two different cultures? Because this is even a harder thing to do when you're stepping across a country boundary. What might you actually say? How does an entrepreneur our entrepreneur that represents Austria right now, that's in the studio audience, how does he look into the US and be successful with introducing his product into the US through this lens that you're offering up, this you applied anthropological lens?
Yeah, by doing the anthropology, by understanding who the US is, who that particular group of people that you're interested in assisting with their unmet demands or that which they seek. You do the anthropology on them, and it works the same way. We've done projects in Russia, we've done projects in Austria, we've done projects in Mexico, we've done, it turns out the method is easily extensible to any market space. The biggest challenge actually turns out to be language.
Wait, say more. Like, is it just the language itself, or is there like underlying meaning in language?
The core of getting from what they said to what they meant is the essence of the successful work in the customer anthropology. For example, was doing a study project in Seattle, and was actually in the break room for the day clinic with a whole bunch of the surgeons, and they were each being assigned to a patient who had shown up for the day clinic. And the guy doing the assignments said, okay, and in the next room we have a woman who's driven up from Olympia. And everyone in the room groaned. So I tracked down the assigner guy afterwards and said, what was that? What happened there? And he said, well, you have to understand Olympia. Olympia is an affluent suburb where everybody has healthcare. We are the community county hospital. The only reason that person drove up here is because they don't have insurance coverage. Which means the hospital isn't going to get paid. Your practice isn't going to get paid except at the bare bones a starving dog rate. And that's why everybody groaned. But all the assigner had to do is say, she's driven up from Olympia. And everybody knew what that meant. And now imagine that kind of situation in vernacular Spanish, or in Dutch, or in You know, that's what I mean when I say the language turns out to be the hard part. The answer to that is you don't do it yourself. You
Yeah,
get
that's interesting
people in
because
the organization who are based in the country to become both the practitioners and the ambassadors for the result. And they're already imbued with the local intricacies and subtle meanings that are being transmitted by the people you're interviewing.
it's interesting because the role that Tech Ranch takes a lot of time, since all of our venture partners have experience on having been expatriate entrepreneurs, meaning we've started businesses in other countries, like in my case in Mexico and in Chile. And here I am, a Texan. Even the time I spent in Boston was a different cultural experience. So it's interesting. It's interesting about like seeing that, and I'm hoping that that's part of the role. And I'm doing a shout out for us about what I think that our role is, but that third party view I think is important to help translate. And it's more than just, it's like the language, but also the layers of cultural intent, the insights, like as an example. And
You mentioned Ford in Chihuahua, the famous Ford story, where they got it wrong. They tried marketing their car called Nova in Mexico, which was widely recognized as Nova.
yeah, it doesn't run. It doesn't
It
go.
doesn't run. It doesn't
Oh,
go.
no, doesn't.
And you know what killed
Go.
Oldsmobile? An ad campaign killed Oldsmobile. They tried marketing their Alero with the slogan, "This is not your father's Oldsmobile." And the bada bee, bada bump, bounce reaction of everyone who heard that was, yes, it is.
Yeah, I know they actually enforce the idea of, yeah, this is not culturally relevant to me
Right.
as a younger
Right.
person. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Nothing from Oldsmobile is culturally relevant. This is boomer material. We're just not going to deal with it. And that ad campaign by itself, because they so completely missed the cultural message, killed the entire division.
So is there one or two tools in the toolbox, or a question or something like that for the individuals that are looking to cross a country boundary, that are like listening to this idea of applied anthropology, and they haven't yet necessarily found a third party that's going to help them? That, like, is there a tool, one tool that you would actually have as the takeaway that you might suggest that they should have?
The tools largely look like expressed voice of the customer tools. And what you need to do is you need to understand what the population people you're trying to serve, what their lives look like. Any way you can get at that is helpful. I did a project once entirely from videos from a British project called Patient Voices. And they're 2 to 3 minute digital stories where the patients are just speaking out. We never interviewed a single patient. All kinds of issues with PHI, talking to patients about their healthcare. So we never interviewed anybody. Presumably there are those same kinds of things. Are there groups? One of the projects I've always wanted to try and never have is to tap all that material that customer service is sitting on. Very few people call customer service to compliment. Most people are there to complain. So it's rotten with points of pain. All you got to do is find a customer service database and start extracting points of pain out of that. You don't have to interview anybody. And you can do that. You don't have to do that in real time, right? That's one of the things where you can actually understood what was meant using Google Translate and a little thinking.
Well, so let me do a shout out for anyone that's online or otherwise. I for whatever reason, I am not getting the normal updates on our stream out on LinkedIn. So I apologize to our LinkedIn viewers. But do we have any, if you have a question for Royce, we're going to take a question or two, and then I want to make sure we get to do a little bit of a community round robin, just really quick before we close. Any questions for Royce before? Raise your digital hand if you're interested in saying something, if you're in the studio audience, and if you're online, if you get a chance, you might even just, I don't know why the notifications are not working out. There's probably something happening to our connection there. So, but let me ask you, Royce, any closing thoughts that you'd like to make sure that you leave the group with as we reflect on how to do this anthropological look on applying
I
our
guess
products to
yeah,
customer needs?
the methods aren't in a book. The methods are best learned by either figuring them out yourself or getting someone to teach you. That's actually how I met Koym was I read his book called Hidden in Plain Sight. And I got about halfway into it and I said, this is too excellent. I've got to figure out how to actually do this stuff. So I just called him up and I said, Koym, how do I do this? And he said, well, the best way to do it is to put together a project with us and we'll teach you. And I've taken that forward. I teach people all the time how to do it. You can figure it out if you've got anybody around you who knows how to do anthropological work. Real ethnography, not what marketing guys would call ethnography, but actual ethnography. Anybody who knows how to do that can probably do it, like all these people down at HEB.
That's perfect. Well, I tell you what, if you get a chance, make sure that you post into the chat that book. I'll make sure in the show notes, or I'll get Immo to make sure on the show notes for today, both on the YouTube posting as well as inside the community, we'll do that. And part of what I want to do is I always get questions for our speakers after, where people send me emails, and in the past I would respond and gently introduce people and stuff like that. I don't do that anymore. If you want to ask Royce a follow-on question, the place to do that so that it's not filling up my inbox, and sorry to step away from doing that type of behavior because it's just not scalable anymore, we're going to post this video and there will be a follow-on inside of the community@techranch.com. And we usually have just a few days of interaction where the speaker, like in this case Royce, will actually follow on and have some answers back and forth. It's usually there's a few people that have some deeper questions that want to follow on. So that's the right way to get in contact. Don't send me an email. I ignore those emails now. Sorry for that. I kind of hate the fact that I do that, but it's been scalable. Royce, I want to say thank you very much. It's great to reconnect with you and have you back in the States, as well as have you back in the Tech Ranch community actively. And I'm looking forward to helping people discover more about how to really listen to this voice. I think, it's like you said earlier, you and I have definitely been students of this because we got a lot of scar tissue realizing that customers don't care if we're not paying attention to them. So thank you for today. I'm definitely excited about having you back.
I love the work and I love teaching people about it.
Well, cool. Well, we're going to end up in the coming weeks, we're going to actually have we're going to open back up to our informal happy hour kind of get-togethers. I'll make sure I invite Royce over to that. And, we can, if you're here in Austin, you can connect face to face. And then if you're interested in asking him some questions as a follow-up, make sure you go to the community site and interact there. So what we're going to do real quick is do a shout out. There's a couple different people that I said, hey, I'm going to give you a minute, not longer. It's just a minute to do a shout out for your company and whatever you're up to. We're going to hear from two people for sure. Marcus from Austria, and then Omar Zaki, who I mentioned earlier, one of the venture partners in Tech Ranch, who's more in charge of some of the investment activities. We'll have them come on. Marcus, let's I tell you what, Marcus, you're going to be in the Austrian cohorts, and thanks for showing up early. I'm glad that you're here. I want to get you guys involved in the community as quickly as possible. Tell us, what's your startup and any requests you have for the community?
Hello, Kevin. Thanks for putting me on the spot. Hello, everyone. It's really great to have a first touch point with the Austin community, as we will be there in October. So I'm one of the co-founders from Hallo Sophia, and we are the booking portal for expert advice. So we are quite strong in Germany and Austria at the moment, where we are based. So if you ever need a lawyer or a tax advisor in Austria, that's the way to go already. And we will be in Austin mainly because the US representation of the Austrian Trade Commission said Austin is the place to be, better than San Francisco and New York for us. So that's the reason why we chose Austin. And we're looking forward to partner with a lot of consulting firms and so on, and mentoring networks to bring our solution that make clients happy with a 99% probability to bring this technology to your community, to your lawyers, tax advisors, and so on and so on.
That's
looking
beautiful.
forward to meet you in person.
Yeah, looking forward to doing the same with you. Do you have any requests for the community? Like one of the things, and don't worry, I'll promise when you get here and even before then, we will drill this. Like some of the other entrepreneurs are like, yeah, Kevin's going to be gentle with Marcus because it's his first time for him to be here. But what's your request for the community? Like if you could make not an open request that just like, I just want to meet people, but a request that says, hey, this is exactly who I need to meet. Make a request to the group and say, this is what I'd like to have. This is how we really move things forward. And the community actually supports each other in these kind of requests. What kind of requests do you have for the community?
Thanks, Kevin, for giving me the culture clash already now, because this is the one thing you would never do in Austria. You would never ask such things. Be humble, wait for someone to approach you. No, clearly what I said, we want to bring our technology to the US, meaning everyone who is interested in operating a mentoring network digitally, who wants to extend their consulting business with an online channel. Whoever wants to do that should talk to us, because not like the other consulting platforms, we really focus on giving the technology to the firms in the first place and not on building up the marketplace as a first product.
We're certainly going to be talking to, one of the reasons that I think the technology behind Hallo Sophia is so interesting is I was like, when I was part of the judging to select Marcus's company out of the different organizations that applied, I was like, I recognize how I could use that. So yeah, we'll be talking about that as well. Hey, thank you for joining. Well, let's do our best to get the rest of the cohort to overcome that natural cultural difference, shyness kind of thing. We're real excited about having you guys here. For everyone else's in awareness, the Austrian Venture Bridge is open now. We'll have an official opening in just a few weeks. And then part of what we're going to be doing is we'll have the team, the cohorts involved with TechCrunch way before they actually land. They land on the ground, I think, October 15th, and will be physically in Austin for a month. But part of what we want to do is we want, instead of waiting until October 15th, which is typically what a lot of the other programs do, I want to make sure we get them integrated in. So Marcus, thanks for being here today, and we'll reach out to the other cohorts and have them involved. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Cool. So let's now see if Omar Zaki is still there. He wasn't able to join us at the very beginning of the program, but I mentioned that I did a shout out about Omar and the investment activities that he's doing. Omar, I don't know if you can publicly talk about the venture that you're raising funds for or not. I told people that if you want to solve, eyesight issues like what I have, that it's a really cool technology. But tell us a little bit, whatever you can about that, and then tell us as well about what you're specifically doing, so that we can get more exposure to the work that you're doing in supporting ventures. Further.
Yeah, it's a company I started working with 6 months ago. It's not, again, we're not in a necessarily public forum that I can't mention the name, but it's a company called Vices Therapeutics. They're a drug development company. They've been developing ophthalmology, non-surgical therapeutics over the past 5 years now. They've finished stage 3 trials on their leading candidate, which basically solves for presbyopia. This is like, us wearing glasses after 40, 43, 45 years old, right? So it's 2 drops a day in the morning, and you don't need the glasses all day. It's a compound therapy that takes another product that's already in the market, but adds to it another molecule that then helps relieve the brow aches and the redness in the eye, and extends the actual effectiveness of, the tightening of your iris, so that you can actually see better again without having to have the glasses on. The company is a very cool company with a pipeline of other non-surgical therapeutics coming out. One of them, which is, I think, a big game changer, is cataract reversal. And they have now the early signs of the ability to do non-surgical cataract reversal, which that's the #1 leading surgical cost here in the United States with Medicare and Medicaid. It's the leading global cause of unnecessary blindness, because most people can't afford to do the surgery. And so they just end up, losing sight because of the cataract. So I think that this is kind of an interesting, story and company that I've been getting to know very well, and the CEO, and I believe on the mission that they're trying to go after. I've been helping them raise money. I've been working with different types of investors over the past 6 months, both institutional, family office, et cetera. I've also been running my own syndication past 3 months, where I'm bringing in, smaller check investors into my own kind of syndicate SPV to take a position in the company. And so have been reaching out to, friends and family, colleagues, et cetera, to, see if people are interested to be a part of that with me. I'm personally invested in it as well. And then, that's a model that I'm pursuing with other companies that kind of, again, fit a certain profile of, stage of development, product, market, all that, and regulatory, and my ability to kind of support that growth.
That's perfect. Well, thanks for being here. Any other shout outs, anything else that like if someone wants to get a hold of you to follow up, there's 2 different email addresses. The general email address for investment activity is invest@techranch.com. Omar's direct email address is omar@techranchaustin.com. Any other things you'd like to say before hopping off? You're about to hop on airplanes to London, right? I think right now you're in Austin and you're going to London, and we're just in Park City.
Yeah.
Where is Omar now?
Yeah, I'm here in Austin. I'm here this week, just in transition. My family and I are taking a couple of weeks in Europe to see some family, and then we're coming back, and I'll be in full swing. I'm still accessible through LinkedIn as well. So, happy to kind of get engaged with anybody on anything interesting.
That sounds great. Well, I tell you what, it's great to see you. I hope that we get a chance to grab a drink really quick before you take off again.
Sounds good. We'll talk soon.
Cool. All right. Well, so I don't know if anyone else. I noticed that we have Dr. Miriam Toy, who is Nigerian. I met in Nigeria, but I think lives in London. Great to see you out there, Sebastian. Thanks for taking the Colombian flag forward. For other people that are actually here, thank y'all for being a part of the community. What we'll go ahead and do is wrap up, unless one of y'all wanted to do a shout out really quick. Miriam, thank you for the note back. That's beautiful. Part of what I want to do is just let's see. I don't want to like rush too far too fast. Still getting used to this smaller screen. I have 2 small screens, so tell you what, we'll go ahead and bring it to the wrap. I know we went over a little bit later than usual. We try to keep these to an hour, and the truth is that sometimes we go over just a little bit because the information's so great. If you have any questions about connecting into the Tech Ranch, we have this one URL that kind of has all the links on it. You can go through the regular website and find a lot of the different details and stuff like that. But the website is techranch.com/connect. If you go to the Connect site, you can sign up for a newsletter to get onto the bigger list about what's happening around the Tech Ranch. You also can find out more about getting into the mentor program. If you're involved in another country and you want to represent this work into another country, this is not an employment type of situation, but a partnership type of situation. There are, like, as an example, one of my partners in Mexico started out as an informal relationship where he said, "Hey, Kevin, I'd like to connect Tech Ranch into Mexico more." His name is Enrique Dunhe. He was a very successful Mexican businessman, got connected into the Tech Ranch programs, got really involved, started carrying us forward into other locations, and then got involved. That country manager information can be found at techranch.com/connect. And there's a few other things there as well to just get involved in the community and things like that. But first and foremost, the main thing is I'm excited that things seem to really be picking up after this whole, 2 years of COVID and a slowdown in the markets and all the crazy things that are happening. Obviously, there's still a lot of uncertainty out there because of the war, because of activities that are happening and stuff like that. But this is the time that entrepreneurs working together can really make things go forward. Even in a down market, some of the larger organizations are going to be very conservative, but this is when we can actually innovate and move forward with our ventures. So just in this closing slide, let us know if there's anything we missed. If there's, during the course of this call, I had people reach out to me from Pakistan, from Honduras, and from Germany. I don't know why I always get the messages right during the middle of the program, but we'll follow up with them and get them involved and stuff like that. Pretty excited about the community and how it's doing some really powerful work. It's always my honor to be a part of a network of entrepreneurs, a community that cares about each other, that are, community of entrepreneurs that are driven by vision and values. Let's go change the world for the better together. You all take care. Have a great day. We'll see you again soon.